Pick one thing, make one step. I don't care what it is, but decide to do something to make yourself feel more in control of your money and your safety. And do one thing. I promise you, if you just change one thing, other things will fall in place. That's the way it works. Don't be overwhelmed and say, I have to do all of this all at once.
Mhm.
Make one phone call or take one step. And if that one step is to sit down and talk to your partner and say, we've done everything else together, raised our kids, built our home, all of this, but I feel like I'm kind of out on my own in this money thing, and I really value your opinion. Can we work together on this?
Welcome, everyone, to the Smarter Online Safety Podcast. I'm your host, Jocelyn King, and I am so excited today. We have Dr. Frances Rahaim, who is the money doctor. She is the founder of Hug Your Money, and she is just an incredible dynamo in the field of finances. She's the host of the radio show Financial Fitness with the Money Doctor. She's the author of Debt or Alive and Retire Debt and Retire Well. She has devoted more than 35 years to educating her clients and helping them improve their relationship with money. She's a problem solver, and you might say that Dr. Ram, as the money doctor, sees things through a wider lens than many other financial professionals. She's usually addressing debt as a primary yet often ignored threat to a comfortable retirement. So her Hug Your Money company helps members become debt-free, improve their credit, budget wisely, build savings, and turn their retirement dreams into reality. And her talent for understanding the human condition as it relates to money and deciphering those complex situations has earned her the moniker of the Solutionizer. And nowhere is this more evident than Hug Your Money, her most comprehensive, affordable, credit-savvy money management software, which is patented, and her financial coaching program. And I'm so happy to have Frances on because she and I, from the first time we met, had such a synergy with wanting to help people have better lives and better retirements. And I'm helping people protect their money and their nest eggs, and she's helping people build and grow their money and their nest eggs. So, Frances, such a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Just listening to you talk about our synergy, I was thinking the core principle we really both have is that we want to help people gain a sense of control,
Yes.
right, about their life or about their money and their security. And so those two things overlap,
Yeah.
many times, especially with online banking and credit cards and shopping and all of the things that people do online that involve, of course, their money, right? So,
Right.
yeah, I think that fear is a problem, shame, all of those emotional things that cause us to make knee-jerk reactions are what get us into trouble. And
Right.
so whether we're
Both
talking
the
about
cyberspace and the
yeah,
financial space. It's so true.
that's right. That's right. So, at the top of the list has to be watch your emotions. Pay attention to your gut,
That is
right?
correct.
If you're talking to someone about your money, for instance, and you're feeling a little bit like, boy, I just don't understand. They use all this jargon. I can't figure out what they're talking about, but I feel kind of belittled or less than. And so I'm just going to say, okay, you manage my money.
Yeah.
To me, that's a flag. You should be saying, no, 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 this is my money. I'm supposed to be able to understand this. So
Mhm.
don't let people do that to you. Don't let them, dazzle you with jargon so that you feel inadequate. Instead, say, if you have to, look, tell this to me like I'm a 6-year-old because I need to understand this about my own money. And
Right.
I promise you, the people that are the most talented about helping you with your money will not try to impress you with the lingo. They will try to get you to understand because anyone in our business who is successful knows that for longevity, you want referrals, you want second and third generations, you want an informed and educated client because they are a better client, they stay longer, and they feel more secure.
Right.
So I say to my clients when they come on board, look, from now on, I'm your new best financial friend. Okay,
Mhm.
if you have a question, you call, you write, you check in with us. So yeah, I think that people are uneasy about their money in a number of ways, not only about whether they have a sense of control over a budget that maybe has never been successful, or the amount of debt that people are carrying today, which is really our number one concern. That's
Right.
part of what our software does is pay off that debt really quickly without harming their credit. But also just how safe they are online when they're banking or shopping.
Well, and you bring up a really good point because I think, one of the things that hackers do, hackers rely on a fight flight response and fear to get people into that adrenaline rush that gets your brain into a reactive mode instead of your best thinking mode so that they can then manipulate and take advantage of you. And I think that, so many people have worries about money, shame about money, guilt about money, have all, we have a lot of emotions tied up about that. And with technology, a lot of people feel insecure around protecting themselves online because they feel like, oh, I should know that. And they feel like they're going to look stupid, is what I hear a lot of people say. I don't want to look stupid. And that fear leads to doing things that end up being poor choices that can hurt us. So hackers rely on manipulating us by our fear. And I think the one thing that online safety and and just online technology and money have in common is it's kind of like a sliding scale from 0 to 100 of how much control you feel you have over it. How much control do you feel you have over protecting yourself online when you think of all of your online accounts and your passwords? And most people feel, under 10% or around the 10% mark. And cybersecurity people feel in the 90s, and they never feel 100% secure because they know what what the worst threats are. But I think that people feel the same way about their money. Like you feel this sense of you're working really hard, you can't save enough, you're running up credit card debt, you want your family to have a nice holiday or whatever or vacation, and then you run up this debt and can't pay it off by the next one and you've lost your savings. So I think that there's this battle of feeling a powerlessness in both online safety and money. And they really come together when hackers are trying to take your money. And I know you have these wonderful long-term relationships with your clients and even the people who just come into your class and get into that. You've seen a lot of this, and you've also had people who have been swindled and manipulated and phished and scammed. And so I would
Yeah.
love for people to hear from you some of the things that you've seen and what advice you have for them of how to protect themselves.
Sure. Well, I think it's important to understand what's really going on in families with money and how this happens. There's a tendency, I think, to say, oh, that person was foolish. They clicked a link, or that person wasn't paying attention and they did some dumb thing.
Mhm.
Okay. If it was only that, we wouldn't have the problem we have in the United States or in the world with this kind of cyber. I mean, the reason that we have agencies that deal with cybercrime is because it's prevalent, right? It happens to everyone sooner or later at some level. Maybe you know it, maybe you don't, but
Well,
somewhere
and
that
just for
happened.
example, the FBI alone gets almost 1 million filings every year. 365 days worth of year gets 1 million filings of criminal reports, and that's just the FBI.
And those are the people that file.
Yes,
But
that's
I'm going to tell you, when we're talking about what happens with your money, I'm going to say that I think there's something similar here. It's not always what you do that causes the problem. Inaction causes the problem also.
mm,
And when we talk about fear and embarrassment and shame, when we talk about money, I'm going to give you an example of a couple. And probably 85% of the people listening to your podcast will say, how did she know that about us? Okay. Because it's almost every couple. And this
mhm.
can happen individually too. But let's take a typical couple dealing with their money. Okay. And I'm getting somewhere here because this is all about emotions. This is all about what we experience within our relationship. So if you think of a couple like two horses pulling a wagon, one horse is pulling one way, the other horse is pulling the other, the wagon's not going anywhere. You need to get them on the same page so that they can pull together as a team, okay? But what really happens before you do that, in order for a couple to feel like they are in trouble financially, whether it's through cyber hackers or it's through just a lack of control over their money, is that almost always one person in the relationship is the steward of household finances, right?
Mm,
They're the one who pays the bills and makes sure the kids get to camp and they handle the holiday money or whatever it is. They figure out how the family's going to take a vacation. And the
mm,
other person, and I know this line gets blurred sometimes, but the other person is very often someone who says, "You're really good at that, honey. That's your job. You do that part. I'll
right.
go earn money and give you my paycheck."
Mhm.
Now, that all works fine as long as there's plenty of money. Nobody cares. But when there's a stressor, there's a bill that can't be paid, somebody gets sick, someone loses a job, a child goes to college, there's something that has changed in the household finances. Sparks fly because the steward goes to the other person and says, "I don't know how to solve this anymore."
Mhm.
And they say, "What have you been doing with the money I give you? What are you
Mhm.
eating bonbons and buying cashmere sweaters? I mean, come on, I give you all this money. Where is the problem?" And
Mhm.
then, so what prevents people from taking action, when I said sometimes it's the inaction that causes the problem, is that they don't want to look foolish, right?
Right,
They don't want to say to their spouse, "I can't fix this anymore."
right.
They see it as part of their value in the marriage to be that fixer. And
And
that's
it's
the same thing that happens with cybersecurity
and it's
problems.
scary to have that crucial conversation. And and cybersecurity can happen the same way. I have people come into my class and they say, I'm going to come back, but I'm bringing my partner because,
Yeah.
and they want, and then, and I'll just say, okay, great. You can come back for free and your partner, you can do it, even though it's not very expensive, but I just want them to be there together. And I've started putting together things where I'm offering them two couples because when you're protecting, think of your Wi-Fi and your router and your passwords and all that, you don't want to just delegate it to one person to be the IT czar of the
Yes.
because you've got everybody has to be informed to protect the whole family. And the same is true whether you're talking about money or online safety.
Yeah, when I first met you, I thought, is there a stretch here for the two of us to be talking about this? But the overlap is unmistakable.
Mhm.
Not just, okay, we're trying to protect your money here and you're trying to protect cybersecurity problems for their money, but
Right.
just that total idea about a family or an individual or a business trying to pay attention to what will happen with their financial picture, right? How do they pay off their debt quickly? How do they build a budget? How do they get to retirement? And guess what? How do they keep their money safe from hackers? Right? I've had examples where I was telling you off the air that there was one of my people who moved away from here. He was not only a client, his wife was my assistant for years. She
Mhm.
passed away, sadly, and he moved away and, went to another state and filled out a bunch of new forms and who knows what happened. But one day I got a text from him and it said, "Francis, I want my money back." And I thought, what money back? What is he talking about? And so I was afraid to reach out because I thought I was getting hacked, right? I thought it was somebody trying to get to me. So
Impersonation.
I called my sister and I said, "Kate, could you go see if you can find this guy and contact him and say, if it's really him, he can call me on my number." And
Mhm.
that's how we connected. And when he called me, I said, "Well, it wasn't, of course it wasn't me. What happened?" And he told me that somebody had called him on the phone, had told them that they were in my Boston office. I don't have a Boston office, but he didn't know that. He moved to another state.
Mhm.
And they talked him into going to the store and getting gift cards. At first, just one small gift card for $50, under the premise that I thought there was this great investment that he should invest in. And the way he was going to do it was to go get a gift card and give them a PIN number. Now, you could say this is awful. There's nobody that would fall for this. This was not a foolish man, but
Right.
he was grief stricken. He was in a new state. He
Right.
thought he got a call from me telling him some sort of good news,
Well, and
and
also
he
we've
acted.
started touching on it on this podcast, but with AI voice impersonation now, Um,
It's really
tomorrow
scary.
anybody could get a call from what sounds like you or I. So we will also say we will never call any viewers here. If you're getting a call from Francis or Jocelyn, hang up because we're not going to call you. But voice impersonation, especially because you and I are both podcasters, so it's very easy to get samples of our voice, our cadence, our choice of language, and AI tools can be turned into these frontmen, if you will,
Yeah.
for hacking people and taking their money. And so it really is a caveat emptor world here.
Yeah, we are very careful, as I've mentioned before, that we don't ask for account numbers, social security numbers. We don't need any of that stuff when you go to our website. You can put in your name and your address. That's everywhere anyway, right?
Right.
And your email, and then you can fill it out. You can fill out our forms however you want. And then you get into a meeting with us or you look at our software. So the things that are very safe to do is our website, of course, and calling us directly. And those are the kinds of things that we want people to do. There might be an occasion where you've written in and I've called you to ask you a question. It's fine to hang up and call me back on my direct line. I'm not going to be offended. I think you've made the point, you've been a guest on our show, Financial Fitness with the Money Doctor, and you've made the point that there's zero trust. And for someone like myself who spends a lifetime building trust with clients, that's a pretty creepy thing to have to say to
Well,
somebody.
and maybe we can say zero digital trust or zero online
N-
trust. So that
I
you,
don't have any problem. Yeah,
yeah,
but I don't have any problem saying, look, I know you trust me,
yeah,
but you need to know that I won't be offended
yeah.
if you say, is this a scam? There are ways
Kind
for
of,
us
kind
to
of need a
communicate.
social norm that is acceptable and being accepted for stuff like that so that we can make this a normal practice and not have people feel anxious about it. Now, I created a cliffhanger for all our listeners who are going, but then what happened to the guy with the, so the first one was $50 and I want to make sure I let you finish your story because it's gonna, it balloons from here.
It was very sad because, of course, I didn't have his money. I couldn't give it back to him. I could help him. And that's what I did. Now, it turned out to be $4,000 when he contacted me.
Right.
So he went back and forth and bought more cards, and they will stay on the phone with him, scratch the card, give us the PIN number. Huge red flag, but he didn't know any better. And after he'd done it a little bit, he got nervous and he started calling the company and saying, I want to make a withdrawal
Mhm.
from my investment. And he would tell me, it was always, oh, you just missed Dr. Raham. Oh, she just went to lunch. Oh, she'll get back to you.
Right.
They were very calm about it.
Mhm.
Finally, now he was in the Midwest at this point, and I'm in Massachusetts.
Mhm.
He finally said, well, I'm going to come to your office. And they said, oh, come ahead. And they gave him an address. Of course, it's a bogus address. They don't have an office, and it isn't me. But he finally tracked me down. But I said to him, why did you do this? Didn't you think to call me right away and just say, Francis, you asked me to get a scratch ticket, a loyalty card? You've never asked me for anything like that. But he was too embarrassed. And he
Mm.
said that to me. At first, I just thought, well, it's a good investment. And they were calling him, they were working him over, calling him
Right.
up and saying, hey, you're doing really great in this investment. It's time to go get another $150 worth of cards.
Right.
And he couldn't make a withdrawal. And that's when he finally smelled a rat. But then he wouldn't tell anybody because he was ashamed.
Yeah.
And
That's where we come
$4,000
back to
later.
the emotion of it. And the $4,000, the average individual loses $4,476 in a
Oh, there's a stat I didn't know about cybersecurity. That's
and
amazing.
and some of them, and we were talking about couples too. I have talked to so many couples who have ended up finding that there were loans taken out and property bought and sold in
Yep.
in their name and the person collecting. So taking out a loan, buying a piece of property, and then selling it and then cashing that and leaving. And they were running a small business. They're not seeing this and they didn't have
Sure.
their credit frozen. And even though they were still together, there was such
Yeah. Friction,
animosity
tension.
and friction because there was also this sense of, well, you were supposed to be in charge of that. Well, you were supposed to be in charge of this because there weren't clear roles and responsibilities, but more importantly, they weren't doing it as a team initially. And taking the time to do the teamwork to make sure you're secure and you're doing things together is so important. I have the people who take my workshops say, okay, how are you going to share this with your family? What are you going to do? And I have a little action item checklist for them to take back so that
Yeah.
they can do that and have the conversations. And I give them access to short videos they can share in their portal, with their family. And some of them are small business owners and things they can what they can share with their employees about how we need to be more protective, not only of our own data, but of our customers' data and finances. So we're implementing these new practices. And it's so important having that conversation, up front, I invite people to think of take the action item sit down and say, what could you, if you want to be 10% safer with your money,
Yes.
you are today. What could you do in the next 24 hours? What could you do today? Today's the only day
Yes.
we've got, everybody. So
Yep.
what can you do today? What's one thing you can do? Maybe it's get a password manager and put financial account in it. Maybe it's look at, um, also think about your debt. The other thing is too, you could, if you're not aware, you've got the debt you know about. A lot of people find out they have debt they don't know about because once you have taken out a lot of small loans, you could have little credit cards taken out for a couple $1,000s. I see this all the time, and then
Yeah.
charged up to the limit, people purchasing things and then ostensibly either selling it or whatever. So they're making money on your credit. And then
Yep.
you not only owe what you legitimately took out, but now
Yeah.
you owe this other. And the longer you wait to learn about it and take action, we're back to that action word. The longer you do that, the harder it is to recover. And sometimes you can't recover at all. To your
Yeah.
point, people ask
It's
me, they
true.
say, well, won't my bank cover it? It's like, well, if you clicked on a link or thought you were investing in something, that the onus of that is on you.
That's
Only
right.
if they hack into the system that the bank is responsible for will the bank take
Right.
responsibility. Most people think, oh, well, my bank will cover me or whatever. But I've had far too many
Mm.
heartbroken, devastated people whose lives have been altered, whether by small amounts and large amounts. Come to
Well,
me.
you were one of them.
I was one.
You were one of them, yeah. We tell everybody, every client and everybody that will listen to me, I tell them the same thing. Look, I want you to put a freeze on your credit report. If you only do one thing
Yeah,
for the moment, put a freeze on your credit reports, all three credit reports, because the danger isn't that somebody, uh, gets your social security number. The danger is that they build an identity that is you and
right,
they use your credit and maybe they make the payments for a little while. But
mhm,
when they don't, try and prove that it wasn't you that took that loan out. And
right.
there have been cases in front of the FBI and government that, people's lives are just completely. I think there was a movie with Sandra Bullock made
Mhm,
about this, right? Where people's lives are just completely destroyed because someone has stolen their identity. And it isn't just that they, bought a car. Another thing that we tell people about is watch out for your children.
yes.
Identity thieves love to get fresh, unused credit of a child, of a baby, because they've got 15, 18 years to use this before anybody's going to discover that they've
Right.
been using their credit.
I've
Kids,
had that happen.
college.
Yeah. Parents go in to apply for college things and they put the social
Yep,
security number in and the child has horrible credit rating. And it's like they've never done anything.
yep,
The other thing too, your child's and your own social security number is often it's called a synthetic identity where they take your social security number and match it with somebody else's name and stuff. And there's certain systems that you can put that into, and it's not valid. There's not a single source of validating it. So your social security number, which is how your credit gets affected, could have another name on it. And again, even if you recover financially from it, you've
right.
got so much headache, heartburn, and hours of work to do to try to, prove and file and wait to hear responses and be
Oh,
denied and then, and then you have to, respond and, put in another claim and just all these things. It's devastating. And the stress of it hanging over your head
yeah.
for years sometimes can, just, it's not a life anybody wants to live.
It's true. And, talking about what you can do online that's safe and what you can do that's not, right? A lot of people tell me, well, I know what my credit score is because I get it from my bank.
Mhm.
But many of the banks offer a free credit score, but it's not necessarily up to date. It's not necessarily from all three credit reporting bureaus. And sometimes it's through places that are selling your information. They give you this thing for free, but they sell your information. So I always recommend that you just go to annualcreditreport.com, right? I'm not connected with it in any way. That's a direct line to the reporting bureaus. Grab your credit reports from all three bureaus,
You
Equifax,
get one
TransUnion.
free, you get one free from each credit unit every year. So make it like, hey, whatever time of year you're listening to this, it could be your spring cleaning or your fall wrap up or your holiday,
Yeah.
but pick a time on the calendar, request them now and get them and make sure you don't have anything funny on there. And then add it to your calendar for next year at the same time, because that's when you can go and get your free one. If now a lot of people will pay and have something where they're getting a monthly monitor, and those are very much worth it. But if you're on a really tight budget and you're not going to do anything otherwise, at the very least, get your free one and do it every year religiously.
I'm going to give you the money doctor workaround
Oh,
for
perfect.
this. Okay.
I
So
love
this is not something I plan to talk about on a podcast, but I'm going to say it. So
that.
yes, you get one free one from each of these three, Equifax, Experian, and TransUnion. So you could stagger them, right? Get one a quarter and you'd covered three quarters of the year.
That's
But the
great.
other thing that you need to know is every time you dispute something, even if it's your address change or you find something on there and you write to them and say, this was not my debt, it's going to generate another copy of that for free.
Ah,
So, so pull them right up front. This is my advice. Pull all three of them right up front. Check them for accuracy. Dispute anything you want and stagger those disputes if you need to, if it's not anything terribly important. And that will generate a new one. So you can make sure in advance of getting a loan, for instance, that your credit is clean before you go walking into a bank saying, hey, I've found a vehicle I like and I want a loan. Make sure that what they're going to see is accurate and as clean as it can be. And you can do that, as I said, mostly for free doing it that way.
that is super smart. I love that. And that's a great way to protect your credit and protect your money and protect yourself online. I love that. That's so awesome. So that is
Don't
great.
forget
So
the
the credit
freeze.
freezes, certainly look for anything suspicious. I love your thing of like if you get a suspicious phone call, email, whatever, um, tell them I'll call you right back, and or I'll get back to you, and then go to the way to contact the person. The
Yeah,
the person who lost the $4,000, if he had stopped to just find your website where you have your phone number listed and called your known good phone number, would have saved himself $4,000, lots of trips to the store, and the shame that he felt. It
yeah,
does
it was sad.
yeah, it does affect your self-esteem. And even though you're not at fault, unfortunately, cybercrime is one of those things that still has the victim feels the blame. And
You
the
feel
cyber,
violated.
yes, and the
Yeah,
cyber criminals get away scot-free. And in fact, they feel vindicated because they feel like, you know, they have that, oh, they were a sucker, they let me get it. They don't feel any sense of remorse. They feel that you hand it to them scot-free.
that's
It's like the criminals who come in, you leave and your garage door is wide open and they come in and steal something out of your garage. They feel you invited them to, and they feel zero remorse. So they're getting away emotionally scot-free, and the victim isn't, and they're getting away with all of your hard-earned cash, and you've lost it. So these is
well,
great.
to a hacker, every time they get away with it is more positive reinforcement.
Yes.
And, they're priding themselves in being good at this job, which, you know,
And they also have the esteem of the rest of the hackers around them. It's not
right,
unlike a legitimate sales team where somebody makes a great deal and
right.
they're ringing the bell and everybody's talking about them and they get to be the big cheese and the top dog and all that. And it's the same thing in the hacker world. It's like they're the top gamer that day. So
Right.
really
Yeah.
true. And if there was one other piece of advice you would offer people so that they could live safer, better, be smarter and be safe,
Mhm.
what would you advise?
Pick one thing, make one step. I don't care what it is, but decide to do something to make yourself feel more in control of your money and your safety. And do one thing. I promise you, if you just change one thing, other things will fall in place. That's the way it works. Don't be overwhelmed and say, I have to do all of this all at once.
Mhm.
Make one phone call or take one step. And if that one step is to sit down and talk to your partner and say, we've done everything else together, raised our kids, built our home, all of this, but I feel like I'm kind of out on my own in this money thing, and I really value your opinion. Can we work together on this? Then do that.
I love that. And for people who want to get more help with their money and want to hug their money, how can they get in touch with you?
Sure, they can reach us at 413-773-3333, or of course at our website at like everybody needs a hug, hugyourmoney.com.
That's so awesome. Thank you so much, Francis, for being on the
Thanks.
show. Thank you. And I think talking about the emotional side of it is so important because until you address that, it's harder to take the action. So thank you for all the reminders and the great reinforcement. And thank you for all that you do helping people. be smarter with their money. And that concludes another episode of our podcast, everybody. Thank you so much. And if you like this episode and know people who can benefit from it, please share it, subscribe, leave us a review if you can, and that will help us reach others and help other people stay smarter and safer online. Stay safe out there.